Local Justice, presented by Elrod Law Firm, serving our community since 1980. Here's your host, attorney Ben Leader.
Welcome to Local Justice. Today we're honored to have with us State Senator Everett Stubbs. Everett, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're glad to have a conversation with you and look forward to diving in. Everett's gone from being a small town attorney to someone who's quickly made a huge impact in Columbia as a state senator. And so we'll talk a little bit more about your journey, what led you to law and what led you to politics. Talk a little bit about what tort reform means and how you're still working hard to protect our rights to justice here in the community. So let's dive right in and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of where you grew up and what led you to be interested in the field of law.
Yeah, so it's funny because I was telling some folks before I came on the show with you a little bit about that. I was born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina, so South Carolinian, through and through. And I didn't ever really have an interest in law until I got to college. I went to college, I was a pre-vet major. The sciences taught me that maybe I didn't want to be a veterinarian. Ended up with a business degree, and I had a professor that taught a business law class that I really enjoyed. My father was a police officer. He was a sheriff's deputy in Greenville County, retired after 30 plus years. And so I was always kind of drawn to law and law enforcement. And then after I got out of college, I graduated in 2008 from Lander University. I was looking for more. I was washing cars for Enterprise Rent-A-Car in their management trainee program, and decided to take the LSAT. Did pretty well on it, and got into law school. And actually, I went to Charlotte School of Law up here.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but I lived in Chester the entire time that I was in law school in Charlotte. Just kind of that country feel is something, I hunt and fish and love life outdoors and rather be on a tractor than, in a car any day. And that kind of lifestyle in Chester really, it adopted me and I adopted them. And so from 2009, we've been kind of Chester oriented. So
Sure. And when did you originally cross paths with the firm you're a part of now? Was that during law school or?
No, so I knew both of the senior partners at the time, Arthur Gaston and Bill Marion. And, I went to church with Bill. I'm an ARP. I'm a recovering Southern Baptist is what I tell people. I was born and raised Southern Baptist, but I married a gal, Caroline Rockholt Stubbs now, who's, fourth generation Catawba Leslie area, South Rock Hill. And she was an ARPer from Neely's Creek ARP. And so when we got married, we went to the Chester ARP church. We were living in Chester at that time. And so I knew Bill Marion, who's one of the senior partners there. And of course, Arthur Gaston. In a small bar, you can't help but know everybody. So I did a couple things and then ended up with them maybe in probably year 3 of my career. And I was the third lawyer, and we've done quite a bit of growing since. We lost Arthur last year. He passed away in his mid-80s, a legal legend in Chester County. Yes,
Absolutely.
And,
I'd say the state as a whole.
Yes,
most people knew his name very well.
So kind of neat. One of the very first fingerprint cases him and his father tried. And so you think about the technology now with crime scene units and all that stuff, and he was one of the first people in South Carolina to deal with fingerprints in a criminal case. And just kind of that history, that hometown feel. The firm's been there for over 100 years. I mean, it naturally drew me in. So.
Absolutely. And one of the unique things about your firm, I think that's great, is that y'all do have a diverse areas of practice. Y'all can help people with a lot of different issues, whether it's injuries or criminal issues or I think real estate, wills. And where did you kind of start there and what did your practice kind of develop into? What do you find the most joy in doing? So
we call ourselves a one-stop shop. We're a country law firm and, we want people to be able to utilize us for all the services that, that they need. Now there are definitely situations that we can't really handle, say bankruptcy or something very specialized. But for the most part, the largest part of our business is real estate, wills, trust, probate work, and then we do a good bit of also civil work, injury stuff. We represent a lot of small businesses in Chester. ABO, Broad River, a number of those are, clients of ours. What else? We do a lot. We do some criminal defense very sparingly. If we have a client that we need to help out, because we have 3 former prosecutors in our office. So, I mean, we know it. It's just that it's not something that we do a lot of, so.
Sure. Well, it sounds like the firm has grown kind of in conjunction with the town itself, because
right.
The number of lawyers have grown, the practice areas have grown, and Chester now has these businesses that are coming to it, and I think the future's very bright on both fronts.
I do too. And so we now have 3 offices. We have the downtown Chester, the original old commercial bank building, which is a huge building, and we outgrew it, to be honest with you. So we opened a Richburg office. And I was primarily in Richburg, and that's the office right beside the Richburg Fire Department at the corner of Highway 9 and 901. And now we have a Winsboro office as well. One of our attorneys, Kareem Hunter, who's a former assistant attorney general and solicitor from down there, he was tired of driving back and forth to Chester, and I don't blame him. So we opened a Winsboro office for him, and they're doing great. So.
That's great. Well, I know you have to have a good team in place to be able to do what you do and be in Columbia and also still, practicing too. That's not an easy balancing act, as I've seen Tommy, try to do that for a number of years. So.
You've seen it firsthand, right?
That's right. So. That's right. A lot of late nights and early mornings, I'm sure.
I'll tell you this. My wife is the MVP of this family. I can tell you that. I mean, she, excuse me, you can't really realize until you see how much she shoulders the burden of, just the day-to-day family stuff between my job, my political, career. It's a lot falls on her, and without her, none of this would be possible.
A huge sacrifice for sure.
So.
We're going to take a brief break from our sponsors, and we're going to jump right back in here shortly. So thanks for being with us, Everett, and thank you all for joining. We'll be back in just a minute.
Coke Zero is now Coke Zero Sugar, with great Coke taste. Some people were excited to hear the news. Some were skeptical. So we're not going to have the star of the show you're watching come out and say, "You'll love it." No special jingle written by this week's hottest pop star. No famous internet celebs who happen to be holding the label just so. Okay, maybe just one little pour shot. The only thing that will make you believe Coke Zero Sugar has great Coke taste is trying it yourself. Ice cold Coke Zero Sugar. Try one today.
Being there for someone in their time of need is what Green Funeral Home has done compassionately for 4 generations. It's a privilege we take very seriously.
We believe each life should be honored and remembered by family and friends. Whether you choose traditional burial in our chapel or another venue, or cremation provided by our on-site crematory, we will help guide you through each step to ensure your needs are met.
We are also available to discuss pre-planning. Peace of mind that you have helped your loved one by making those difficult decisions.
When the need arises, our family is here for your family.
At Founders, we know your finances matter. That's why we have loans for any reason.
Can Founders help us with our mortgage?
Of course.
Can Founders get me an
auto loan? Not a problem.
Nice.
Can we do something about this?
Home improvements? Absolutely.
How about just getting ahead?
Pay down some bills? We can do that. When you need a loan, our great low rates give you the opportunity to invest in the most important thing, you. So relax. At Founders, we're with you every step of the way.
As soon as I contacted Elrod Pope, they handled everything. Without Elrod Pope's help, I'd have been paying hospital bills for years to come. Elrod Pope just took the stress and they put it on their table and took it off mine.
Coming to Elrod Pope, I didn't have to worry about anything. Everything was taken care of. It put me in a real calm state because I had someone on my side. I knew that I was in the right hands. It felt great.
Keep your vehicle in top-notch shape and properly maintained. Take it to Burns Tire and Quick Service Center. There's no appointment needed, all makes and models accepted. The Burns team will get your oil changed, fluids topped off, tires rotated, or if needed, show you options for new ones. You can even stay in your vehicle while the work is being done. Burns Tire and Quick Service Center, open 6 days a week, I-77 and Cherry Road next to Burns Chevrolet.
Live Strong at the YMCA is a lifesaver for so many people.
I love Live Strong because you meet so many people, you learn how strong you can be physically and mentally.
The camaraderie and the closeness that you feel and come together as a group is just amazing.
We meet them where they are, and we work with them to help them get stronger.
At the YMCA of Upper Palmetto, we are proud to offer our community the support of the Live Strong program to all cancer survivors. For more information, visit your local branch.
Welcome back to Local Justice. I'm Ben Leader, and today I'm honored to be here with Senator Everett Stubbs. Senator, thanks again for being with us. I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yes, sir.
Want to jump back into kind of your background. We learned about what led you to the field of law and where you got settled in at the firm. And what ultimately transpired that led you to say, hey, I want to jump into politics from the practice of law?
Yeah, so I guess I'm kind of an underdog guy, you know, and so here I am, you know, practicing law in Chester County, and Senate District 17 makes up all of Fairfield County, all of Chester County, Southeast York County, and part of Lancaster County. But it's really kind of the underdog, you know, district, for lack of a better term. It's the people that are thought about after the fact, and, you know, that rule. And I just didn't feel like we were getting the respect that we deserved in Columbia. I mean, these are, you know, most of which are South Carolina born and bred folks and good salt of the earth people. And, you know, a lot of the resources were going to Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, which are great places, you know, but we matter too. And so I was kind of tired of seeing us take the back seat to everyone else. And so I took it upon myself to jump into the race. And, you know, I think so far, at least, I think folks would agree, I've been relatively effective in year one of being able to change the outlook of what the folks in Columbia think about our district. So.
That's great. Would you say this was ever like a childhood dream of yours or a plan of any sort, or did it just kind of come out of nowhere?
Not even close. So, yeah, I had no ambitions to be in politics. I had my views, but I didn't, you know, wasn't like an advocate out in the public. And, you know, like when I grew up, and we're, you know, pretty close in age, it was about getting things done, you know, and being a business owner and yourself as well. I mean, you know that in order to get things done, you've got to be attentive, and you've got to actively pursue whatever it is that you're getting done. And I was kind of frustrated with the political climate of the world, and it's, you know, a bunch of talking points and a lot of the things that just are not, that just don't create action and get things done. And we were spending a lot of time on things that I thought didn't deserve the amount of attention that they were getting. We need practical things done. Right now I'm working on, our state trooper numbers have diminished greatly. York County, for example, I just requested the org chart, and back in 2010, there were 48 slots for state troopers in York County. We've got like 17 on the roll right now. And so those are things that South Carolinians are paying for, and I want to see the services be provided to the best of the ability. That's a state government, that's a state function, and I love our state troopers, but man, they're getting pounded. They're getting worked to death. They're running from wreck to wreck to wreck, and, you know, York County has grown since 2010 for probably more than 100,000 people, but yet we've cut the amount of folks that are working the roads in half. I mean, that's just not a sustainable model. And so those are the things that I really wanted to do to help our state. So.
And the campaign itself, I'm sure, was a very taxing process on you and your family, like it would be anybody going through that. Were you able to actually take a moment and enjoy the victory, or was it just jump right on to kind of rolling the sleeves up and dive it in?
So I think everybody should run for political office at least once, you know, just the experience of it. You know, it's the best part, the worst part about, you know, a campaign is what things are said on the internet, you know, all that kind of the stuff, the horror things that you hear. The best part of the people I met. I absolutely don't regret any of this because of the folks that I've met. I've met some of the best people on earth, I think, and they're right here in Senate District 17. And that's been the blessing to me and my family. The family was willing to make the sacrifice. I was too. Obviously, this isn't, you know, for any personal gain. In fact, it's put a pretty big financial hurting on our family, but at the same time, that was a sacrifice we're willing to make. And, you know, but at the same time, like I said, it's been a blessing just getting to meet the folks. I wanted to get to work, though. We won. The very first meeting I set up was less than a week later. It was with the Fairfield Economic Development folks down with the county government. Again, I was focused on what can we do to help the district. Jobs, all right? Jobs is a big thing for me. How do we get good, high-paying jobs into the district so that folks aren't leaving our counties? Fairfield has been going down in population. That's almost unheard of in South Carolina. We've got an influx of people like you've never seen. But yet one of the counties that I was going to be partially responsible for was losing population. How do we correct that? How do we turn the ship around? And so, you know, I'm a worker bee. So as soon as I found out I was elected, I went to work, and that's my comfort zone.
Oh yeah, and I think some of the success that y'all have seen in Chester and the growth there is probably a good roadmap for what we hope we'll see in, you know, Fairfield and Winsboro and areas like that too.
Yeah, so we've been able to land, even since I've been part of it, we've been able to land it's a company that was already in Fairfield, but we actually landed a second division that's going to create, I think, about 80 jobs, and that might not sound like a lot, but those 80 jobs, the construction project, all those things, you know, there's a trickle effect,
oh, yeah.
And so, or a snowball effect.
There's 80 families that are
and
benefiting too.
You know, and then momentum matters, right? I mean, you know, you don't have to throw a touchdown pass every snap. If you're moving the ball down the field and getting that progress every time you get closer to that end zone, it really, that momentum helps drive you. And so, you know, some of the small victories turn into larger victories. So I looked at it as, what can we do in the short term that's going to line us up for the long term? And it's been fun. It's been a lot of work. Run across obstacles I didn't think I would.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, it's been a challenge, and you know, we've embraced that as a family, and it's been fun. So
that's great. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of exciting things going on. I'm sure you got a ton of plans in the works for the next session as well. And your term is set to run through when? Remind me.
So it's a 4-year term,
okay.
And so Senate's 4, House is 2. And every 2 years is a new General Assembly. So we just finished the legislative year 1. So all the bills that have been filed, we can still visit in year 2. But if they don't get passed this time, you have to restart, refile, go through that whole process for the next term. It potentially going to be a new House. The Senate should be the same. Minus if anybody, you know, leaves or, you know, goes to a different position, or but the Senate should be pretty similar to what it is now. 2 years from now, the House might look a little different.
And I think I had read something where y'all had the most number of new seats this year in the last 100+ years.
So, you know, 13 freshman senators, you know, out of 46, and so it's the largest class since Reconstruction, and
wow.
So. That was also a blessing for me because it gave me opportunities I might not have if I was 1 or 2 freshmen. You know, when a third of the body turns over, you kind of have to be involved in things.
Yeah.
They have to involve you in things that they might not have done otherwise. So it's, you know, but again, I'm a faithful guy. I believe God led me down this path. The opportunity that I have before me, it's on me if I don't capitalize on being able to help the district and the state with the opportunity that I have.
That's great. We're going to take another brief break from our sponsors for just a minute, and we'll be right back with Local Justice shortly.
Coke Zero is now Coke Zero Sugar, with great Coke taste. Some people were excited to hear the news, some were skeptical. So we're not going to have the star of the show you're watching come out and say, "You'll love it." No special jingle written by this week's hottest pop star. No famous internet celebs who happen to be holding the label just so. Okay. Maybe just one little pour shot. The only thing that will make you believe Coke Zero Sugar has great Coke taste is trying it yourself. Ice cold Coke Zero Sugar. Try one today.
Hi, I'm John Warden with Champion Services. If you're considering remodeling or making repairs to your home due to storm damage, here's a few things to ponder. A lot of folks have come in town promising a lot of things about we are here, we've been here for a long period of time, only to be found false. Choosing the right contractor is extremely important. Here at Champion Services, our goal is one thing, it's customer satisfaction. And that's just not a sentence, that's a fact. Let me say it's been a joy to serve you for over 30 years. This message is brought to you by Champion Services and CN2.
Nesting season is here again, and overworked bird moms can always use a hand. There's plenty to do, from building a nest and laying eggs to raising their young ones. You can help the whole family by providing bird foods rich in calcium, protein, and fat, such as our Super Suets, Bark Butter Bits, or Nesting Super Blend. And provide a safe place to nest with one of our ready-to-use Eco-Tough nesting boxes. Shop Wild Birds Unlimited for everything you'll need to invite nesting birds to raise a family in your backyard.
Welcome back to Local Justice. I'm Ben Leader, and today I'm honored to be here with Senator Everett Stubbs. Senator, thanks again for joining us and letting us learn a little bit more about you, your path to law, and your path to politics as well. Want to jump right into a hot topic that was, I guess, a huge part of your first year in office, which was the conversation surrounding tort reform.
Oh, yeah.
You know, with your background and being an attorney who has, you know, been on the civil side of things, I think you have a unique perspective that comes to the table in terms of what you see and what you hear. And, you know, first things first, what do you think one of the biggest misconceptions is about trial lawyers and about the issue of tort reform?
Yeah, so I think that there's a misconception about what trial lawyers are. And it's funny because I hear the word trial lawyer, and then, you know, but realistically, the people that I think they're talking about are the folks that would never try a case if their life depended on it. You know, you see in the practice of law, there's lawyers and then there's case managers, right? And so I'm very comfortable in a courtroom. If someone calls me a trial lawyer, it's because I can try a case. I know what the rules of evidence are. I know the rules of civil procedure, all those things. And a lot of these folks that are, you know, heavy advertisers and stuff, they're not. I mean, quite frankly, they've got a bar license, but I don't think they've ever tried a case before.
Sure.
And so that's a big, y'all's firm is that way. Y'all are a great trial team that y'all have at Elrod Pope. And, our team as well is very comfortable in a courtroom, but not every law firm is created equal. And I think that some of these folks out there, have created a negative view on our profession. And so it's funny when we were talking about tort reform, some of these folks I'm as disgruntled with as anybody, because I think they kind of give us a black eye on what we do. When we represent someone that's been involved in a serious, life-changing, tragic situation, whether it be a wreck or, having their arm cut off at work or something, I mean, those are serious situations. And so the gimmicky stuff on, TV or Facebook or whatever else that's not the time for that stuff. And so with tort reform, it seems like some of those folks kind of laid the groundwork to make us look like the bad guys. I know a ton of very solid conservative individuals that happen to be attorneys that practice in the injury world. And so for me, what it's about is justice. And there's a couple things that our Constitution guarantees us, okay? One is the right to a jury trial, all right? This tort reform situation, there were a lot of changes that they were proposing in regards to jury trial, and I couldn't agree with all those. I agreed that we needed to make some changes, especially when it came to bars and restaurants and some of the strict liability regarding alcohol and all that other stuff, because it needs to be equitable. Our civil justice system needs to be equitable, and it would probably tip a little too much for the plaintiff's side in some aspects. But some of the things they were doing would just tip the scale the other way, and that's not good for society, not good for South Carolinians. And so it was an interesting year, that being kind of the first high-profile big thing. A lot of senior senators told us they never saw a session that it was as ugly as it was, and it was all kind of stemming around money. Whether you're talking, trial lawyer money, whether you're talking insurance company money, whether you're talking mega corporation money, and it's what it was all about. But at the end of the day, what I wanted to do was strike a balance between fairness for those that are unfortunate, that are injured in tragic situation, and the small businesses and the corporations that are paying insurance premiums. And I think that we got very close to striking that balance with the legislation that passed.
That's great. I know it was probably a roller coaster of a couple of months there. You know, I think there's a ton of conversation and debate over the First Amendment or the Second Amendment, but the right to a trial by jury is not something that's typically spoken about a lot, but I think at the core, that's really what tort reform is an attack on the right to have a fair trial by a jury. And, you know, I think it's our belief that we trust the juries to make the right decision and to put the facts in their hands to analyze and not to kind of hamstring their abilities, you know, without even getting to it.
So I'll tell you this too, in talking to some of the folks that, you know, are the largest supporters of tort reform, you know, they agreed with me on a couple points that I thought were important in this conversation. One is that they should try more cases. I mean, you know, there's all this talk about how there's, you know, these fraudulent cases being brought and this and that and other. Well, there's an easy way to cure that, and that's to make lawyers go in there and present that case to a jury and let a jury send them home with nothing. And so that'll kind of curb their behavior of bringing these kind of fictitious claims. I don't do that. I know y'all don't do that, because if a case isn't worth it, I've got a law license I stand behind. If there's not merits to a case, there's no way I'm touching it. But again, not everybody's created equal.
Right, and I think a jury sees right through that, and you know, they punish you if you're there for the wrong reasons.
And so I had a guy that prosecuted, actually just got elected to a bench. He was a prosecutor in Chester a long time ago, and he said, you know, Everett, people forget, you try the good cases and you settle the bad ones. Well, that's not what's happening, okay? Especially from the insurance defense side. If you've got a strong defense, you should make the other side earn it, not just lay down and cut a check. And you know, I don't know what their business model is. I've never done insurance defense, and there's a lot of people that say, oh, well, it's cheaper just to cut a check and move on. Well, you're also setting yourself up for 10 other bad claims, right? And so from a business perspective, I don't know where they're at and why they do some of the things they do. But it makes us look bad when they're making, you know, payments for things they never should. And then we've got very legitimate cases that they're giving us a hard time on, which, you know, again, is kind of, it befuddles me sometimes, kind of the way that happens.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad to have voices like yours in Columbia who understand the full nuances of the justice process and everything that's involved in that, and, you know, will continue to speak to preserve those rights and to allow our juries to have the power to make their own decisions. And so,
sure. Can I say one last thing on that?
So
there's no right or wrong answer to this, right? And so what I figured out in my first term, you can have all the best intentions that you want in creating some legislation, and there could be some consequence that you don't anticipate that comes because of that. People will figure out what the law is, how to skirt it, how to, you know, and so it's going to be a constant back and forth. But again, you know, all we're trying to reach is a balancing of the scales of justice, okay? It doesn't need to be tipped in any direction. And so, you know, I think we've got a good bill here. If it comes back and there's some issues with it, we should address those issues. But as far as in my experience, my limited experience, a giant bill that we handled this term, going from medical malpractice to the alcohol stuff to even the statute of repose regarding, you know, liability of contractors and building a home, it was just too much. I think that what we need to do is tailor what we look at, you know, a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb, get those areas that had the largest issues right, and not necessarily try to eat the whole elephant with one bite. So that was a learning experience for me. But I do think because so many people are involved in legislation, the more tailored you can make it, the better it is for South Carolinians in the long run.
Absolutely. Well, Senator Stubbs, thank you for your time here today. Thank you for your experience that you provide to this community and to preserving justice, and for the time you spend in Columbia away from your family and away from your job. I know it's a big sacrifice, but the people in your communities and your constituents certainly benefit from having your voice there. So we appreciate your time and look forward to continuing the conversation another day. And thanks again for tuning in with Local Justice. That'll wrap up this episode with Senator Stubbs, and we'll see you next time. All right.
Perfect.
Easy
They're
enough.
good?
Yeah, good job.
My phone kept vibrating over here.
That's